Hi, this is Bob Weiss. I'm the host of Shaking Your World. Cheers. Welcome home. Yet another session at Shakers in our Shaking Your World concept of podcast and videos. Today we have a good friend of the house who's here to talk about a couple of fun things. One of those is going to be what he does for a living. I can't think of anything more fun than being a tax attorney. And we'll get into something about cigars as well. At the moment, we are smoking some fine punch cigars from the motherland, and I can't say enough about the difference between a fine Cuban cigar and I think some other places. They are truly exceptional, and I'm sure you agree. You were telling a story about 20 years ago, having one of these. You were probably still in grade school back then, but...
Hardly, but yeah, it was like 1994, so maybe 26 years ago when I took up cigars. After buying my dad some for Christmas, and decided I was going to enjoy some with him, and I started with punch cigars. So,
and the world comes around in circles.
It sure does.
So I think before we get into the nuance of what you do for a living, let's talk somewhat about the COVID situation and how that has made some changes, and one of those is the recent mandate from yesterday for the city of Milwaukee to have masks for everybody.
Yes.
So not just for bank robbers anymore, but now everybody everywhere, washing clothes, hanging them outside, doing your lawn, you must have a mask on.
Yes. So as I understand the ordinance, and having looked at it, it's kind of a short one actually, but it is... requires anyone located inside the city of Milwaukee to have on their person a facial covering as defined by the CDC. And if they are outdoors in a public space and they approach, and they're 3 or older, and they approach anyone within 6 feet, they are required to have a face mask on. And if they are indoors in a public space, they must have a face mask on at all times, unless it is for dental, medical, or purposes, or for the consumption of food or beverage. So I think the moral of the story is, here at Shakers, be sure to have a drink in front of you and be ready to eat some of this excellent food.
Seems fairly simple to me as well, because I also look further. I have a tendency to look at the gray areas in statutes and in laws, clearly. And as the only licensed cigar bar in the city of Milwaukee, we do play that gray area quite well. And I would suggest as well that it is near to impossible to smoke and enjoy a fine cigar when you have a facial covering on.
Unless you cut a hole in it.
Unless you cut a hole in it.
Yes.
Which perhaps nullifies the purpose.
Yes.
So I don't really think that things will change too much at Shakers, and I also have an opinion that it is not the responsibility of a restaurateur, a bar owner, whomever in the service industry to police people as they walk in and out. We can certainly make suggestions to them, but by the way, there's an ordinance. We will be posted on the front door. There will be postings, additional CDC postings everywhere. But at a certain level, it just seems to me that this is... Again, I can't stress enough that the pandemic is real, that virus is a killer and has all sorts of attributes to it that none of us want to get into. But I do think that there is a complete political nature that's taking place here. And I think that is really what is moving this mandate in the city of Milwaukee.
You're probably right, Bob. And what's interesting about this ordinance, as opposed to a lot of other ones, is that it puts... the burden of enforcement, not only on the business owners, but on the health department. So it specifically excludes police. The City of Milwaukee Police Department will not be responsible for enforcing this ordinance, but rather it'll be health department personnel who may get called or get a complaint or may just be walking down the street or whatever else, and they can issue citations, a warning, and then a citation, and then on a second or third offense, it becomes, they can shut a place down. So that's what's really neat. In this era of defunding police and trying to shift responsibilities from police, I guess this is one that does that.
There's all sorts of constitutional issues that are going on as well, and I have received some information from some large firms in the country that are going after municipalities that are trying to or have begun the mandate. There is all sorts of beyond conjecture that what is being forced upon us is really not legal.
Sure.
So I think that you're going to see, and I published something not too long ago that once the trial attorneys get here, certainly not you, but once the trial attorneys get involved with this case, it's going to cost the city of Milwaukee an awful lot of money, which naturally just rolls down to the taxpayers to pay this, because naturally you can't get people for malfeasance yet. It has happened in some cases where some political leaders, some judges have been held accountable for their errors while on the bench or while they're sitting in a common council or as a mayor. I don't think we're quite at that standard yet for Wisconsin, but I think that it's probably going to be knocking on the door. And I think that would be a real eye-opener for a lot of politicians who just think they can get away with whatever they can because it's speaking into further different cause they have going on, and that's just not going to happen. I think the environment is going to shift. I think much of the silent majority is going to wake up in the not-too-distant future and say,
Enough's enough.
of this.
Yep. Well, you only have to look back a month and a half to when the Wisconsin Supreme Court, decided that the safer-at-home order that the governor had issued was unconstitutional, that there was nothing in the Wisconsin Constitution that conferred authority on a single individual, the health department secretary, to compel 5.8 million of us to stay at home.
So as we went into this crisis with the pandemic, the health department was already undermanned and overwhelmed, and I've had 2 conversations with them this week. They are even more undermanned and underwhelmed today. And there has been a movement to hire a large number of minions that don't have the qualifications, the education, the whatever, the wherewithal. And they're, for all intent and purpose, they are spies that are coming out now looking for places that don't have an enforcement policy in place for the mandate. And I think that's just going to end up blowing up on someone as well at some point. Yes, the police want no part of this, and why would they? They've got legitimate things to take care of.
Yep.
And my gosh, what a mess this is just going to be for everybody. So naturally, we will do our part at Shakers to comply the best that we possibly can with this. We had just a meeting last weekend, and again, I stress to people, it is not our obligation to be the police or to be policing these things. Certainly, as part of our compact with the city that allows us to be here in business, we will make people aware that there is masking ordinance in place, but that's about the extent of it from my perspective. So enough of that. But
because presumably everybody that's here is doing something with their mouth, whether it's smoking a cigar or drinking or eating. So,
certainly as a cardiac patient, I've got my own concerns about this because when I go to other places, I'm in a shop for a short period of time, I'll have a mask on. If that's what their policy is, I'll comply. But if it's an extended period of time, then there are all sorts of other issues that take place that are just not remotely conducive to prolonged wearing it. And I competed in sports for a long period of time, and I know an awful lot of people that have asthma as well. And I think this is something that hasn't been talked about, hasn't been broached. And I think that you got your own particulate matter that's here, and that's going to foster either the growth of other bacteria, of mold, of something else. And frankly, every time you're taking that mask off, you got to get up from the table, you're going back to the loo or something, you're going somewhere else, you're supposed to put your mask back, recontaminating, and there's not a process for the disposal of any of these highly contagious, hazardous things, right? So we're being hoodwinked in so many ways. I can't get around this or be nicer about this. We are being hoodwinked for political purposes, and I think that we have some new alder people on the board that are really behind this effort and want to just jam it down people's throats. And payback is going to be a bitch. Yeah. So now the other side of this whole pandemic thing is something that is probably keener to you as a tax attorney. Without naming the major firm that you work with, you have to have a lot of clients. I'm going to guess you have clients that are getting themselves or have gotten in a situation with the last 3 or 4 or 5 months that they need some form of relief. So my line of sauces was sold at like Neiman Marcus and Nordstrom's and Barney's and Bloomies and all sorts of things, and most of those joints have filed for at least receivership, get some relief, and some are just going to be playing out of business, man. And I think that we are going to be in for this bloodletting coming somewhere in November, December, because the eviction rate, everything else is going to be so high. So it's going to be not just businesses, it's going to be individual people, families will be ripped apart. And then there are those families that are together that maybe after 3 or 4 months confined together don't want to be together. So now that whole divorce issue, I mean, a field day for attorneys who are doing family law. And unfortunately, I'm sure the burden gets passed to you as a tax attorney because so much of both the estates, family property, and businesses are taxation issues, or will be.
Sure.
So you're going to have just a ton of work. I don't know how we can even see you anymore.
How what?
How you can even manage to find the time to come here. and or how you can not find the time because the stress you're under has to be significant.
Always make the time to come here. So it's, we've begun to see that, and we will see more of it. In my own practice, one of the practical ways it comes up is, for example, with property owners. Mm-hmm. Okay, and the city, at least in the city of Milwaukee, reassesses or revalues property on an annual basis, issues assessment notices in April, and then you've got until like May to appeal them. And the city on its website this year posted a special blurb, the city assessor's office posted a special blurb about how COVID does not affect property values because property values are assessed as of January 1 of the year. So you've got businesses that, were mandated to shut down for 2 or 3 months. You've got landlords that aren't collecting rent. And as a result, the value of that building for all intents and purposes is less this year than it was the year before when the business could do business. So some of these effects are not even going to be seen until next year. Furthermore, you've got the Department of Revenue and sales tax. And sales tax collections obviously have been way down for March, April, May, even continuing to go down. And you're going to see the impact of that in audits and the like, where the state is going to be under pressure, and auditors for the state are going to be under pressure to find revenues that may have escaped because of the lack of business. So it's this whole ripple effect. We focus on our own livelihoods and our own incomes, which we all should do. Mm-hmm. But there's also these government services that require, regardless of where you fall on the political spectrum, government still has to perform its basic functions, fire, police, and the like. And the revenues just simply aren't going to be there to support that.
Yep.
So you come around to January 1st, 2021, and you're going to have a lot of property owners probably saying, hey, you got this building assessed as if it had, 3 years of tenancy, and it simply didn't have that.
Yep.
So
it's interesting to see what takes place with the liquor licenses as well, and the myriad licenses I have here, both for city things and the ag department and even the federal things I've got. And there was talk at one point that they were going to be adjusted, or the rebate was going to be in place. I just received my packet for this next year. Of course, October 13th, I think, is my renewal date. But and there's a fee that goes along with that, by the way.
Yeah.
So,
which probably hasn't been reduced, right?
Probably has not been reduced.
Yes.
Yeah, not at all, as a matter of fact.
Yeah.
And yet you can make these restrictions on the business. You can have everything else in Milwaukee County that's open, but not the city per se for
Sure.
how long. And so, if I'm a client, do I want to just get a pickup somewhere, or do I actually want to go to a restaurant, be served, and enjoy either my date or enjoy my wife, or whatever the case might be,
Sure.
or take the kids somewhere, right? So the fallacies are so significant with our current regime. And I've not been shy about this either. Tom Barrett, our mayor, is a very nice man. I don't expect you to respond, by the way, because perhaps politically you can't. But he's a very nice man. But he is poorly equipped. He's always been poorly equipped to run a major metropolitan city. At one point, though, he had some very talented people around him, whether it's Pat Curley, whether it's Joel Brennan. They're both gone. Mm-hmm. And now there's that vacuum that's there. He doesn't have the people looking out for him. Because once upon a time, Tom could walk outside, you'd ask him where the wind was coming from, and he'd turn to the right or the left and ask them, and they'd say, it's coming from the left, Your Honor. And, oh, okay, thank you. Now he's got no one. He's just look, there's sun up there, there's clouds. And, he's feeble anyway, he's in poor health. So the DNC is coming our way next month, And the plan is that during the DNC process, he is going to abdicate as mayor, and Chevy Cavalier Johnson, who is the president of the Common Council, will become the acting mayor at that point. And then he and the health commissioner, Jeanette, are going to shut down the city again because those germs are everywhere. We got to do the best you can to keep that virus on this side of 60th Street. It can't go beyond that, and we're not going to let it here either, in a way. Yeah.
Not realizing the virus doesn't know boundaries to the extent that it's...
It must have GPS or something, doesn't it?
Well, yeah.
It's a very sophisticated virus.
Yes. You know, two quick stories, Bob, and I don't know if I've shared them with you before or not, but during the Safer at Home shutdown that was statewide, there was and I do make time to go to some other places, Bob, but there was another place where there was the city police stopped in there twice and found that the place, in one case, was serving alcohol, and in the other place was allowing customers who were waiting for takeout orders to consume an alcoholic beverage while they were waiting. In the first case, after the shutdown, the city attorney contacted the business and said, hey, you did this, you had a competitive advantage over other businesses, therefore our police identified twice that you did this, and so therefore we want you to sign this settlement agreement that says you agree to shut down on 2 days of your choosing to make up for it. And so the business owner signed that agreement, and then the very next day, the police called and said, we will be issuing you 2 citations for violating the order. So they got a double whammy there. In the other case, the city actually threatened to revoke the business's liquor license for serving drinks to customers waiting for takeout orders, and the business owner had to go to Common Council and plead her case and ultimately prevailed. But it's been a wild, wild ride.
It's a wicked environment. We had a couple of cases ourselves where competitive restaurants or venues had called because we had a number of people that were queued outside waiting for their takeout things, because that's at that point all we could do was takeout.
Yeah.
And then we had a young lady, one of our staff, who was selling bottles of wine out there half price, which is a real nice thing for everybody, right? And we're legally allowed to do that.
Yep.
Legal to do it. So the police came down, and they know us, we know them, and said very apologetically, just responding, blah 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 blah. But there was also a member of the city who was here who was not thrilled to hear that was one of our competitors, because license time is going to come knocking at some point. That karma does catch up with people.
It does. Karma's real.
It really is. And then for our last gig as well, we had someone complain that we had a number of people, and the former health inspector started off by saying, and the complaint began that you had people smoking cigars, and she said, I know you are a cigar bar. And she said, I can't believe that they'd lead off with this, because clearly anything they say, and it's anonymous as well, she said at that point, she said it's just...
What, they were complaining that people were smoking?
We're smoking cigars on a rooftop deck for one of those parties. Mm-hmm.
At a cigar bar?
At a cigar bar.
Wow.
And outside.
And outside.
And outside, yeah. So, I like to think we've had a great rapport with the city of Milwaukee for 34 years. I like to think that's going to continue
I've noticed that, Bob. You have very good relationships with the city.
But, and we like to keep that.
Yeah.
But these are trying times. There's no question that everything is going to be changing in many ways. And I hope our relationship continues on, but I do anticipate that there will be some adjustments that are necessary.
Absolutely.
So I had, amongst the many people, and fortunately Shakers is busy, so we had 2 couples that were from New York last week, and I spoke with them for a while. Mm-hmm. And one of the females said that at her place of business in New York, everybody was mandated to take a COVID test.
Okay.
So one of her associates had set her appointment, but something else came up for work, and she had a meeting or whatever it was that took place, and she couldn't attend.
Okay.
3 days later, she received the email that her test came back positive. She had never been tested.
Oh my.
Oh my, and you're shocked at this, I'm
Yes.
sure.
Yes.
So there was also a study that several nurses had submitted several Q-tips as if they had been swabbed, as if they had been used, they had not been, and they also came back as positive. So you might suggest, I might suggest, that there's something taking place above and beyond just
Testing.
there you go. That's a polite way to put that.
Oh my. You know, there have been stories like that. I know that there are memes that go around saying, for example, however many people were shot in Chicago over the last week, that perhaps those were COVID related.
Well, that's the running joke. 3 in the chest, 1 on the head, COVID, right?
Yes,
So,
yes,
yeah.
yes. So,
Well, we used to be suicide if it was political, right? So,
you never know.
guy named Foster, okay, whatever. Yeah.
Sure.
So the cigar, I noticed you're really not getting into it, so please.
Oh, well, you know, I'm just being good for the camera.
No. By the way, we're not concerned about the FCC here, so
Oh,
I Heard
right.
Radio has graciously picked us up for podcasts, and that's going, thither and yon, but FCC is not part of that for the podcast world. Because we get a little bit blue here sometimes, about as blue as your shirt.
Oh my. No, we got this now. And Bob's relating too. No, I brought my brother here, my friend, my girlfriend, my dad's been here. All enjoy it. We were here for the mud boil a couple years ago, your inaugural one.
I appreciate that. Thank you.
Bob actually gave us one of the crawfish to take home, or set it on the table, and we took it home. It didn't survive the night, though, Bob.
Yeah, it's too bad.
Yeah.
There was a time that for one of the mud bug boils, and my kids were much younger, and I took like a dozen of these things home. And they look really nice in the aquarium. There's all sorts of exotic tropical fish already that's there, and one by one or more, the fish would just disappear. It never occurred to me that the crawfish that's sitting on the bottom is able to reach up, grab things, or even to swim at great rates of speed. So after all the fish were expunged and whatever else we had in there were gone, we noticed that the crawfish themselves started to deplete. Well, the carcasses were there, but you start seeing these things that now had 1 claw missing, 2 claws missing, the tail is cut off, they're just eviscerated, the carnage. So in a very short period of time, completely primal,
Crawfish were after each other?
crawfish destroyed each other till there's one left.
Oh my.
Yeah,
Oh,
and
my.
he was banged up as well. But that's almost like I see people now. Mental health is a huge issue in our society every single day, and I can't imagine
Even without COVID.
even without COVID. And I can't imagine what first responders have to work with police, firefighters, EMTs, whomever, right? Mm-hmm. But for God's sakes, people are just set off by the simplest things, and as you see driving around town, holy crap, what's wrong with these people, right? So, I mean, it's not just a little, kind of a stop at a stoplight and go through kind of thing, or nudge your way through. It's like they fly, they barrel everywhere.
Did you notice that bike lanes have become passing lanes?
Yeah, passing on the right in the bike lane, absolutely.
yes.
Yeah, pity the poor bike that's there. But,
Yeah.
man.
I in the roads that I'm talking about, I don't see a lot of bikes there, but there is a lot of passing going on.
So, getting back to the business side for a moment, what is your firm doing or suggesting to your legacy clients that are, if nothing else, they have to find a way to redistribute things?
Sure. So we've got on our website a COVID related information on various government programs that are available. The Paycheck Protection Program. There's one that the Wisconsin Economic Development Corporation has put together, a smaller one, and other resources on there, both from the employment law perspective to the finance perspective and the loans and the aid that's available. I'm happy to share the website if it's okay with you. It's Reinhartlaw.com, ReinhartLaw.com, and there are a lot of resources there, a lot of good people. We're a larger firm in Wisconsin, and it's a business-centered firm, and we've got attorneys that practice in all areas. We don't do any family law, and we don't do, which probably would be a lucrative business to get into these days. I've got a daughter who wants to do that. So, only white collar criminals. So, not murders, not anything like that. But
Yeah, but you've got that guy who's the chief executive of a major firm, and one day his wife disappears, and they're looking at him, and you're suggesting he goes somewhere else, right?
there may be more experience somewhere else. Yes. But then on the other hand, if he's charged with the intent to evade or defeat taxes, we may be able to help him.
I'm sure you can.
So,
yeah, your firm has a marvelous reputation forever. It's been around for
good long time. I should know this, Bob, and it's escaping me. But
good long time works. The cameras are on us. I understand completely.
Closing in on about 100 years, I suppose.
Yeah.
Maybe 75. So
cool. So where do you see yourself in 5 years?
See myself 5 years, probably exactly where I am. I'll probably be a working stiff till the end of it, like the rest of us.
Sure. So still here then, right?
Still here. Oh yeah, absolutely. Still be here.
Have you a favorite meal here?
Well, I'm a little partial to the meatballs, Bob. I like the meatballs on the mozzarella with the green and red peppers and onions and jalapenos. Mac and cheese is awesome. The jambalaya I've had. The pizza's good. Pizza's always excellent.
Interesting about those Cajun meatballs. When we started those things 30-odd years ago, we began with kangaroo testicles because Australian wines were really on fire and everything was shrimp on the Barbie kind of thing, and it was just huge, right? So there was a glut of...
They're not still that, are they?
No, there was a glut of kangaroo meat that was everywhere.
Okay.
And high in protein.
Yeah.
And, we used to do a lot more in the exotic things than we do today.
Okay.
So...
Well, you still have some good stuff on that. I think, what was it? What's that? Conch.
Yep, we had conch a couple of weeks ago. We had shark last week. I got scallops
that was
this
good
week.
shark.
Thank
Mako
you.
shark.
Mako shark. Yep.
Jerk Mako shark.
Jerk Mako shark. Getting ready for that big jerk dinner on the rooftop on the 31st,
right, on the 31st
of July. Yep.
Yes.
Hope you can attend that.
We'll be.
I'm roasting chickens. I got a real high-end spit that we're doing this. So I've got 30-some birds that will be jerked, and they're just going to slow cook, and they're going to split those in half. Everyone gets half a bird. We've got curried goat as well.
Okay.
So we got some fun things.
Sounds good.
Yeah, why not? And then, of course, that Jam and Jerk ice cream to finish things off. So we're getting back in the retail marketplace. That's a misnomer. Retail is dead. So all these major stores that we used to sell to, the Neiman's, whatever, they're done. So we are developing this product line, which is going to be sold at Shakers, but then is also going to be sold for e-commerce, because that's the way of the world today.
Yeah.
So we've got a feeler into Amazon, we got something into the Costco's, and I'll be working on the Walmarts as well, because they got legs. They'll be around for the next 20 years, and or at least the next year that I'm alive. So, but we'll do our best to move the product forward that way. I think that people, by and large, are looking for something more interesting to eat. You're, the same dang thing at home. You get out once in a while, or it gets the same pickup or carry out. It's kind of one-dimensional. You need something else.
Yeah.
So that's why we're reinvigorating this. And it's long enough after my divorce so I can play with these things again and whatever we are. But I see a lot of positive things here. I think that this pandemic is more than a malady and more than something minor. I think it has significant ramifications and collateral damage for everybody. But I also think that through any type of obstacle, you find an opportunity, and you do your best to exploit that, and make it positive. And positivity is very important.
Yeah, I think there'll be a number of changes. Some of them for the better, and some of them for the. Hopefully, we can get back to the better.
Yeah. So I noticed you're drinking Miller Lite mostly when you're here. Tell me about that. You're a hometown boy here drinking light beer.
Drinking light beer, although we've had some great whiskey here, and had some Palomas, and Tom Collins. I'm trying to remember what else. Brought my daughter here one night, and Ronnie was making her all kinds of drinks that she liked.
That Ronnie, yeah.
Yeah. So. But yeah, my true and tried staple, Miller Lite.
A lot of good about that. I was just...
I did try your Ghost Ale once.
Well, thank you. Thank you.
That was good.
Thank you. So I spent the last a good part of the last 2 days researching Jeffrey Dahmer. We do the Cream City Cannibal Tour.
Sure.
We had a young lady in yesterday, the young lady who tried to intercede when Conrad Sithasapone was running down the street naked. She's the one that called the police, and they brushed her off. And he was killed later that day after being returned by the police to Dahmer. Anyway, so I though I know much more about this. In fact, of the many things I've done in my life, part of my legacy is now going to be the Cream City Cannibal Tour.
Okay.
Not my intent, but there it is, right? So I just want to get back up to speed with her on this, and I'm watching all sorts of things, documentaries, the movies that I've made, everything else. And by and large, Jeffrey Dahmer drank Budweiser. So there are pictures of him, historical pictures.
Well, that's because he grew up in Ohio.
But he was born in West Dallas.
Oh,
and
I did not
his
know
parents
that.
then, his father got his PhD in chemical engineering, I believe, and they had an opportunity. He moved down to Ohio, and he spent some of his formative years there, and then he came back here. But you should have Miller in his veins, not Budweiser. I'm just thinking, the mark of a serial killer. And I'm not suggesting that serial killers all drink Budweiser, nor is Bud the Juice of serial killers. But I'm glad to see you drinking Miller Lite.
Yes. Well, thank you.
Cool. Well, I think that we're pretty much exhausted this short little session. I hope we can do it again sometime. But I think
sounds good.
Something else you want to talk about?
I'm good, Bob. Thank you.
Cheers for being here. Thank you so much.
Thanks for having me.